Hello, and a very pleasant good day to you wherever you may be. Welcome to this special Cooperstown Bound video. Gabriel's having a seat right now, where we are celebrating the beginning of the baseball season, and we're super excited about it. Go Rays, right?
Yeah, go Rays.
Go Rays, yeah, they're a whopping 4-4 right now, so
Yes!
it's just a tremendous start to the season for the Rays. But today we're going to switch things up and do something a little bit different. You guys have seemed to like our last few videos where we've kind of gone non-baseball, like our Dude Perfect video, the candy tasting video, things like that. So today we're going to talk about something just a little different. You want to tell them what we're doing?
So today we're going to be counting down our picks, a list, for the top 10 80s movie moments.
Yeah.
So basically this is just like the most iconic movie scenes from the 1980s.
Yeah, and what we thought with this too, and we know you guys are definitely going to agree to disagree on this one. We'll explain our thinking on each one of these. A couple of rules that we had. So first of all, it had to be a moment that was like clearly associated with an 80s movie. Like in other words, if somebody just saw a picture of this moment like hanging on a wall, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's an 80s movie, and they would know. There's definitely some iconic moments that we left off the list because they're great movie moments, but people don't really realize that they're from the 80s all the time.
Yeah.
And we'll explain those as we get to them. So, do you want to do the honorable mentions first?
Yes. So we have 4 honorable mentions, and then we'll go through our top 10 list. So one of our honorable mentions is the warehouse dance from Footloose.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely an 80s movie moment.
Yeah, I think most people would recognize this. This was what, 84?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. You know, Kevin Bacon dancing around that warehouse and
doing all those flips.
yeah, actually a pretty,
Was it actually
pretty
him
talented
doing it?
dancer. Yeah, it was. I think he did the whole scene. So
Oh.
pretty talented guy.
Okay, so
Yep. So our next honorable mention is the street parade scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Now, one of the reasons why this didn't make the top 10 is we kind of felt like there were probably a lot of iconic moments in this movie, and there were a lot that could have been on the list, but one, didn't really stand out above the others, but we felt like this was probably the most iconic moment. So, yeah, street parade, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Who wouldn't want to take a day off from school and, like, just basically walk into a giant parade along with everything else?
I've never seen it. So.
Oh, that's right. You have never. Oh, okay. Well, you got to see Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So we'll also talk about which ones Gabriel has seen and which one he hasn't. I'll take the next one because I'm going to explain this one because I know that.
I haven't seen it.
Yes, and if there are some people watching of a certain age, particularly some females watching of a certain age, you're going to be like, oh, this needs to be in the top 10. But it's the lift from The Last Dance of Dirty Dancing. That's our next honorable mention, and I just will not put this in the top 10 because this is one of my least favorite movies of all time. But I do agree that it should be on. I do agree that it should be mentioned as an honorable mention, for the 80s. So definitely, but not. Not on the top 10.
Okay.
I just can't do it as a top 10. I'm sorry.
I'll explain this last one. So one last honorable mention, and this is Say Hello to My Little Friend from Scarface.
Yeah.
So part of the reason why this isn't on the list, I mean, it's one of the most parodied moments in movie history, probably the most. But so you might be thinking, why is it on the list if it's so iconic? Not a lot of people know, unless you're like a big movie buff, that it's from the movie Scarface, and also it's not really like presenting itself as an 80s movie. It could really just be like from 70s, 80s to 90s.
Yeah, we know that a lot of people that know movies really well would know that this is from the early 80s. I think Scarface is 83. But we kind of felt like it's not like a quintessential, like if you put a picture of that on the wall, people wouldn't be like, oh, that's an 80s movie. So definitely.
Okay, so.
All right, so.
Getting the top 10 list started.
Getting us started. Now, because Gabriel has not seen the first 2 movies.
I've seen.
You've seen a bunch of the other ones.
I've seen every single other one besides the first 2.
So I'm actually going to do the first 2 on the list, number 10 and number 9, and then he'll take you through some of the other ones. So, all right, number 10 is Judd Nelson's fist pump at the end of The Breakfast Club. Geez, I almost forgot already. My goodness, the end of The Breakfast Club. So obviously, we felt like in this movie, it could have very well been the library dance, where they're all dancing, and it possibly should have been, but again, with the fist pump at the end, and as Don't You Forget About Me is playing. You know, I just felt like with this one, that's kind of the scene that could be featured on the movie poster, and everybody would be like, "Oh yeah, that's."
I think there are some movie posters with it.
There are, yeah. That was actually one of the scenes featured on the movie poster. So that's number 10. Number 10, Fist Bump from Breakfast Club, or Fist Pump. Number 9, the birthday cake scene from 16 Candles, and this is where it's another Brat Pack movie. This is where Molly Ringwald's character Samantha finally gets to meet and get together with her boy, her crush, this guy Jake, who's like, you know, the super popular football star guy at school, and he drives like a Porsche or something. I think, like, it's ridiculous, but anyway, yeah. There's a scene where after her sister's wedding, they go back and, you know, everybody's kind of forgotten about her birthday because it's her sister's wedding day, and he goes back and wishes her happy birthday, and then there's this famous shot of them like sitting, and there's a birthday cake with 16 candles on it between them, and that's probably one of the most famous shots in any 80s movie. So we felt like we had to put that on there. So what is number 8, Gabriel?
Okay, so I'll explain these. So number 8 coming in, it's from probably like maybe one of the least known movies, but this scene is so iconic. It's from the movie Big, and it is the foot piano scene. So this is the scene where Tom Hanks' character is in the toy store, and he's on the, you know, like the big piano where you play it with your feet with the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just
with his boss.
Yeah, it's very iconic because it's from the 80s, obviously, and it's very quintessential to the 80s. A bunch of people know that movie, even though it's one of the least popular movies. That's just on the list. That just shows how crazy 80s movies were and
how well known they are.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's number 8.
Okay.
Now coming in at number 7 is a Ghostbusters scene, obviously from the first Ghostbusters, and this is He Slimed Me. Mm-hmm. So I haven't watched Ghostbusters in a while, so you can...
Oh, you want me to do this one?
Sure.
Okay. So this is the scene where I think it's the Ghostbusters, like their first call out to a major job, and they get called into this like this grand hotel where there's this event going on, and Slimer is like wreaking havoc in the hotel, and they have to go in and try to get rid of him, and they end up kind of walking up through these hallways in this hotel to try to capture Slimer, to try to get him out of the hotel, and at one point he basically comes right at Bill Murray's character. Right at Venkman, and he slimes him, and Venkman's discovered by the other guys, and you know, he's laying there and he's covered with slime, and he's like, he slimed me, and yeah, that's definitely one of the quintessential 80s movie moments, we felt like.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, number 6.
Coming in at number 6, I thought this should probably be a little bit higher because it's also one of the more parodied moments of all time.
And I'll explain why it wasn't a little higher on the list, but no, go ahead.
This is Here's Johnny from The Shining. So in this scene, Jack Torrance was, you know, chasing his family with an axe because he had, you know, cabin fever from being locked in the hotel for months.
It's a good family film.
But yeah, so he was chasing his wife into their bathroom, into the bathroom that they stayed in at the hotel. But so the little kid who is their son named Danny, who's probably 6 years old, he's a small kid, he fit right through the window and slid down and escaped through the hotel. And then, so the mom couldn't fit through the window, so she was locked in the bathroom with a knife. And then Jack Torrance comes in and starts like pounding on the door and then knocking down the door with an axe. And then when there's a little hole in the door, he peers through and says, "Here's Johnny."
Mm-hmm. Yep. And do you know what that's taken from, actually?
No.
Oh, it's actually a takeoff on the original opening of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. So they would always say, "Here's Johnny."
I've heard that before.
Yep. And there's actually, I don't remember now, I'm trying to see, and maybe you guys can look this up too. There's actually, I think that scene was actually improvised by Jack Nicholson. I think he actually just said that, like it wasn't actually in the script. But I don't know. Prove us wrong. So you guys can look that up and take a look at it.
So here's why it wasn't higher.
Yeah, so I definitely felt like that was an iconic movie moment, but again, that movie's from 1980, and would you guys necessarily know that that was an 80s movie versus like 70s? I feel like a lot of people would be like, oh, I don't know, is that late 70s, early 80s? And it's something we definitely associate with being like one of the most famous moments in horror movie history, but do you know that it's an 80s movie moment?
It's like the movie's actually very 70s.
Yeah, well,
The
yes,
hair
it's
and
right on the edge.
The way
It's
that the
1980.
hotel's set up with all
Yeah.
like the red carpets and the
Yep.
hardwood floors and all that stuff.
Yep. So that's the only reason why that one probably wasn't a little higher on our list. And you'll see when we do our top 5 here coming up, you'll see why that one wasn't a little higher on the list, because these are definitely quintessential 80s movie moments. And kicking off the top 5, Gabriel.
Okay, so kicking off the top 5, one of the best like sports movies, I guess you can consider it, but it's the crane kick from the original Karate Kid.
Mm-hmm.
So
Get him a body bag.
this is the scene in the tournament. It's Daniel versus Johnny when both of them have 2 points on, and Daniel's hurt because of course the other guy in the semifinals hurt his leg. So, or his actually, yeah, it was his leg. I'm thinking of the 2011 version.
Yeah, no, it was his leg.
Yeah, so he couldn't really balance on one of his legs, so he just kind of stood there with his leg up, and then he did the famous crane kick to Johnny, which sparked one of like the funniest movie series of the past few years, Cobra Kai.
Yeah,
Sparked that whole
definitely.
series.
Yeah, it's sort of the the retelling of, or not the retelling, but the getting the backstories of a lot of the major characters like Johnny. It's pretty funny. So
Yeah.
Gabriel and I both really enjoy Cobra Kai a lot. So coming in at number 4 on our list of most iconic movie scenes from the 80s, we have the boulder chase scene right at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Indiana Jones is in the temple in South America, and basically the temple is just full of all of these booby traps, and at one point he sets off this whole like kind of cascading effect of a booby trap, and there's a shot that's basically taken in front of him as he's running toward the camera, and you see a boulder coming down this big slope behind him. Definitely one of the most iconic 80s moments, and certainly I think a moment that started a major movie franchise with the Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah.
We won't talk about Indiana Jones 4 because we'd like to flush that one down the toilet and pretend it never happened, but certainly the first 3 movies are quintessentially 80s franchise.
Yes.
Yep. So,
Okay, so
number 3.
coming in at number 3, this could really be anywhere from number 6 to number 2. And this is testing the DeLorean at the beginning of the original Back to the Future movie.
Yep.
So this is where they're at, Marty is riding in on his skateboard at the Twin Pines, then eventually the Lone Pines Mall. I've seen Back to the Future way too many times, but
I think it used to be your favorite movie pretty much.
Yeah, it was really good. I used to really love it. I mean, I still love it, but... So he's riding in on a skateboard, and he sees this, like, big truck, and then the thing comes down, and then he sees the DeLorean, and then Doc comes out, and he, like, explains to him what it is, and then they test it out, and that's, like, when all the movie magic of Back to the Future started.
Yeah, so, and when they send the DeLorean ahead in time 1 minute. And
With Einstein in it.
Yeah, with Einstein, and when it reappears, actually, no, it's not when it reappears, I think it's when it takes off to go ahead into the future 1 minute. You see it coming right at them, and then it hits 88 miles per hour, and it basically disappears, and the flaming tire tracks go right through Doc and Marty's legs. And that, we felt like that whole scene that Gabriel was just describing, kind of culminating with the flaming tire tracks, definitely one of the top 3.
Yeah.
I think one of the top 3 80s movie moments.
Okay, number 2. So between number 2 and number 1, it was really a toss-up. But after we say this number 2, we'll probably give away what the number 1 is. But both of them are easily the 2 most iconic movie moments of the 80s. So number 2 is Biking Past the Moon and E.T. So this is where Elliot is going for a bike ride with E.T. in his little basket, and E.T. has like the special powers to lift him up off the ground and move him all through the air.
Yep. Yeah, they're basically they're trying to escape the adults and the scientists in the movie, kind of, the people that don't really understand and appreciate what's going on and the bond between E.T. and Elliot. This movie at the time, and a lot of people don't remember this because it's been surpassed. This movie was a phenomenon when it came out, and I was a really little kid. I was 4 the summer that this movie came out, but I actually still remember it and all the toys that went along with it, and like the candy. And I mean, I had an ET candy dispenser at one point when I was a little kid. But this movie in the early 80s did over $400 million at the US box office, and it set the all-time record at that point. I think it broke the record that was set by either Jaws or Star Wars. I think it was Jaws.
It was Jaws, yeah.
Yeah, and E.T. just smashed that record and actually made almost twice as much movie as Jaws had. So, total phenomenon. Everybody saw this movie. I had an E.T. puzzle. I had a little stuffed E.T. I had the candy dispenser. All the kids that I went to school with were wearing like ET t-shirts and ET hats. Like, it was just everywhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we really felt like that was number 2. Now, number 1, I'm going to let Gabriel reveal this in just a second. Our number 1 iconic 80s movie moment, possibly one of the most iconic movie moments of all time, period.
Yeah.
If not the most iconic movie moment of all time. Yeah, there was really only one clear choice and one clear franchise from kind of the late 70s, 80s into the 90s, and then right into the 2000s, and that probably just gave it away. But
and even in the 2010s.
And even in the 2010s as well. It's a franchise that carries through strong to this day.
This movie came out in 1980. It is a part of the Star Wars franchise.
Yep.
And it is The Empire Strikes Back, and is the Luke, I am your father scene.
Yeah, we just felt like, this was probably the easiest one to decide, I think, in terms of iconic movie moments. My only argument with this was that people may not, people that are just sort of casual Star Wars fans would be like, oh yeah, that's Luke, I'm your father, but they wouldn't really remember which Star Wars movie that actually happened in.
And if it's from the 80s.
Yeah, is it from the 70s or the 80s?
Because it came out.
Be like, oh, I don't know.
It came out in 1980.
But this is such a hugely iconic moment, and we couldn't put it anywhere else other than number 1.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
Yeah. So which one is your favorite moment on here?
My favorite?
Yeah.
I really love Back to the Future.
Yeah.
I gotta go Back to the Future.
Yeah, I think I would have to go Back to the Future as well. I mean, honestly, I didn't really like E.T. as much either when I was a little kid. There was something that sort of just rubbed me the wrong way about it. I don't know. It just wasn't my thing. But I've learned to like it more as an adult, and I don't know, biking past the moon is pretty special too.
Yeah.
But
I'd
say one of those two.
The DeLorean scene.
Of course, I was a huge Indiana Jones fan growing up too. So cool. Well, we really hope you've enjoyed this video, and we will be bringing you soon a 90s iconic movie moments video that we're really looking forward to making. Gabriel's seen a bunch of those movies too, and that one's going to be tough because 90s is really the era that I grew up in when I was a teenager, and I've pretty much seen all of the major 90s movies, so I think it's going to be even harder than this 80s list because I was a little kid in the 80s, so I've seen most of these as a teenager or as an adult, so yeah, 90s was sort of my era, but we look forward to bringing that to you guys. We hope everybody's doing well. Go Rays as they play the White Sox today and start the season. And happy Easter, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you soon.